post that, I worked in Singapore for a year. Oh, by the way, I actually was born in India, but I grew up in Singapore. So that's why I found my way back there. And I worked at a dental laboratory for a year. I was managing the dental lab and was kind of working with the technicians, understanding the prosthesis and how everything is genuinely done. And post that, I did a 3-month advanced clinical training at UCLA in the Department of Orofacial Pain and Dental Sleep Medicine. And I had to cut it short by 9 months because I got accepted into NYU College of Dentistry. And I will now be graduating in 2027. So this is just a little bit about me. Yeah.
Awesome. So what we'll do throughout the webinar is we have gotten a few questions from all of you through the form. So we'll take that a little bit one by one. And as we go into the conversation, please feel free to text on the chat here or raise your hands if you have any direct questions. And I want to give a disclaimer here that Shreya's introduction definitely seems like a very efficient, effective profile. I don't know, Shreya, if you felt that when you were on the other side before you got the acceptance, but now when we hear it, you have done quite a bit, which I'm hoping, or we are hoping as Caapid Simplified, that it will be inspiring for the rest of you and not the opposite. Like, please don't, be here thinking she's done everything and that's why she got an acceptance. It's not like that. She was also where you guys were, and, she paved the road brick by brick, and now she's here. So that's how I would love for you all to perceive her story and get inspired from that. So before we go into the questions we got, Shreya, I have a question when I heard, as I heard you speak, which was about the dental laboratory.
Yeah.
So why I ask that is because when I speak to a lot of dentists on a daily basis, and everyone has a hesitation to, go into any diverse dental experience, which is not clinical particularly, except for shadowing, assisting, and working. They're hesitant, or they feel like these experiences will not count to their final profile. So what is your take on that, and how did the laboratory experience, how did you bring that into your profile and your application?
So I would definitely say that this is also something that was weighing heavy on my mind, because it's very conventional to go via the assisting route. And I believe a lot of people have that kind of experience. But in Singapore, I particularly needed a visa to work. And to be able to be eligible for that, I had to do had to pursue a profession that was in a particular pay scale. So that is one reason. But aside from that, the main motivation behind doing that particular that particular role, was because I definitely thought that it would bring something different in my profile. It's not very common to come across a dentist who has experience in a laboratory setting, because here you're not just applying your own knowledge as a dentist, but you're also trying to understand the perspective of dental technicians. So you definitely bring something new to the table. Like, I think this is something, I particularly heavily believe that this is what gave me an edge over the other applicants, I would say. So no experience that is related to the field is, I would say, is not something that you should completely abandon. Like, you should definitely give it a go. And in my opinion, the strongest way would be to put it out in your application in such a way that it looks very that it looks very different and provides you with that particular, like, shining edge or something. That's what I would say. And
Shining edge.
yeah, like
Nice.
a shining edge, or I ran out of words. So
No, I mean
some
that's right. I mean, all of you look the same in terms of your profile. It's just that gleaming edge for them to see that you stand apart in the stack of every other application.
Yeah, and I think genuinely, when I was giving interviews for dental schools, they were extremely curious to know what I was doing on a day-to-day basis. They wanted to know what the technicians taught me, what I learned as a dentist, what changed my perception of dentistry. because I was in Singapore, and the way dentists do dentistry in every country is a little bit different. So they were very eager on knowing, okay, tell me what are the differences that you've noticed in systems in India, Singapore, and in the US. So I think developing that kind of a broader perspective while working also worked to my advantage. So I would definitely say, please
Yes.
do not hesitate from taking up such roles, because they are very courageous roles. And I think that it comes across very positively on your application. And most importantly, you should know how to convey it in that particular manner, for sure.
Is there anyone here in the audience and the listeners who have experience in any other country apart from their own home country? The best thing about this is I don't know what you all are doing because I can't see your video. So if it's a yes, then you can raise your hands. Oh, this is the question, Anisha?
No, actually,
Or
I
is the
just
question is a
started
question?
my dental shadowing here in the US. So if that
Okay.
counts, yeah.
No, I mean, apart from North America, in other countries, what I
Oh,
meant.
all right, all
Apart
right.
from that, that is
So
like, yeah.
you just mentioned the home country part, so I just
Yes,
like picked it
my
up and
bad.
yeah.
Yes, but congratulations on starting your shadowing. I know it's difficult to get an opportunity, so that's awesome.
Thank you.
I hope you have a long, fruitful association with them and get a good letter, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks.
And since Anisha brought that up, Shreya, just to add on to what you were saying, so you worked in the laboratory. Apart from that, what did your clinical experience look like in like anywhere in India, Singapore, or in the US or Canada?
Okay, sure. So after I graduated in 2022, I had about 8 months where I was working in Agra. I was staying with my grandparents, my nana nani, and I was working in a suburban town there, and just basically seeing patients who came with the most severe tobacco abuse cases. So it was a lot of rural dentistry, I would say. And I did get lots of hands-on experience, and it taught me more about the functionality of dentistry than aesthetics, because I know a lot of us are focused on the aesthetic part of it now in this day and generation, but it really taught me to appreciate more of the functionality part of dentistry, I would say. So I was doing that for 8 months. After that, I went to Rutgers and I did a 3 month preceptorship. So with preceptorships, okay, I would like to shed a little more light on preceptorships, since I've had some experience in two different universities. So preceptorship in Rutgers is very hands-on. They let you see patients. They let you do things that you are confident in under the license of the supervising dentist there. For example, we were working in the medically complex cleaning, and they would allow, clinic, and they would allow us to see medically compromised patients and really chart out their treatment plans and do some light work, I would say. I was assisting the professor in oral medicine who was doing biopsies, and I think it was very, very hands on. Now, when you come to UCLA, how they do preceptorship is a little bit different. It's more observation based, and they don't really let you, handle or like touch a patient. So that was the difference that I noticed. And because I knew that preceptorship in UCLA is not hands on, I had applied for the advanced clinical training program. Now, this is something that not a lot of people know about. So, an advanced clinical training program, it ranges anywhere between 1 year to 2 years. And basically, here you're working in association or collaboration with any particular department. You purchase the malpractice insurance, which is under your name, and you're treated as a resident while you're in the department. The tricky part, however, I would say, would be, getting a licensure after this, because I believe there are only a few departments that if you do ACT in those departments, you would be eligible for licensure. However, I was doing it in orofacial pain, and my initial goal was to, do 1 year of ACT and then maybe migrate into a residency. So ultimately, that would also give me a licensure, but that would be a limited license. But if you do ACT in particular departments, like if I remember correctly, restorative dentistry, it's a 2 years ACT program, and they're allowed to enroll themselves for a limited license. So I think not a lot of people knew about this particular thing, and it's definitely something to look into if you want more hands-on experience in the US. That's what I would say, and if you're really able to and you would like.
Thank you for saying that, because I think you covered multiple topics in this regard. Preceptorship and the ACT program. You're right. A lot of people don't know about ACT program. Do you know whether something has changed this year in ACT? Because I heard that something's different with the program. Is that something you have heard as well?
Okay, so
UCLA.
I haven't heard about there being anything different.
Okay.
Last I was at UCLA would have been in September, and
Quite
no,
recent.
yeah, that
That
was
was like
September,
right now.
and
Okay. All right.
nothing had changed. Yeah,
So this is to say that you had 8 months of clinical experience in India, and then afterwards you had dental experiences in some hands-on, but nothing in a clinic, right? Not in Singapore, not in Canada or North America.
I would say in Rutgers, I was doing a lot of hands-on stuff, so I would definitely call that clinical dentistry.
Apart from that,
Apart from that, while I was in Singapore for 1 year working in a lab, no, that was completely non-clinical, which I had mentioned before. I was very scared that it would weigh very heavy on my profile.
yeah,
But
all
I
right.
think, yeah, but I think it was good
So
because
why
it,
I was reiterating that is because a lot of people usually are worried that they have no dental, clinical experience when they apply. And I think yours is a good example to say that, whatever minimal experience in it, in a conventional sense inside a clinic, not at a preceptorship program,
right.
helps. And then
Yeah,
share is then try to diversify and do other experiences to sort of compensate for that, which I think worked really well for you because you had, now when I look at it, it's a very diverse set of experiences, right? So the takeaway I think for y'all should be that, like, do not stop, right? Like, if you feel like you can't get into that clinic and get shadowing or hands-on experience, it's all right. Don't worry that back in the days you could not do practice as a dentist. Just keep going forward and find out what you can do. And love that you spoke about Rutgers being hands-on, because people do consider that when they choose the preceptorship.
yeah. I think you
Uh,
have to be very picky, and you should know the program well before you apply for a preceptorship, because it's honestly a lot of money riding into it.
it
So
is true. And the Rutgers one is 3 months, right?
So I had opted for 3 months, but you have a 5.5 months option. Then you have 8 months, and I think you have 11.5 months. So, and I had done it in
Okay.
oral medicine. So I would definitely
Okay.
recommend that department because it's the foundation of dentistry. Like it's the backbone department. Yeah.
That's nice. All right. Dr. Anisha, you have a question. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Flynn. So, I wanted to ask Dr. Shreya that when she mentioned that with the ACT program in UCLA, you said that there's like a limited license connected to it. So, like, how limited in what sense? Like, clinical procedures limited or area specific limited?
Okay. So let me put it this way. When you do a DDS in the US, when you do a DDS DMD in any university in the US, you're basically getting a license to practice in all the states. So you're not limited to just a few states. You can practice anywhere, right? But when you do something like but when you are an internationally trained dentist and you pursue a residency, or you do 2 years of an ACT program in a specialty like restorative dentistry, then you are eligible by CODA to apply. And once they review all your qualifications and they see that okay, you've done this hour, these many hours of this thing, you've done these procedures, then they kind of weigh you against the other dentists in the country, and they give you something called the limited license. So a limited license basically just means that you are limited to practicing dentistry in just a few states. Now, the number of states that ADA recognizes, or that allows you to practice as a limited licensed dentist varies every year. So some years it can be 7, some years it's 15. So it's very unpredictable. But another thing about limited license, if I'm not wrong and if I'm still up to date with the information, if you work for 5 years in a particular state that recognizes your limited license, you can practice general dentistry in other states after 5 years. Yeah, so
All
you
right.
basically have to work for 5 years in those few states only.
All
So
right. All right.
yeah, that's an alternate path, and yeah, that's how I would put it. I'm sorry,
Thank
Flynn
you.
and Meenakshi, please correct me if I'm wrong with the numbers or any other facts.
No, 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 no. These are things that you will be able to tell more accurately. But that being said, anything that any of us talk about programs and even licensure for that matter, please make sure that you check that year's
Yeah.
regulations because that does tend to change a lot in schools and states. So
And
that is something you can do. Yeah, go ahead,
absolutely.
Shreya.
And I would say, please do not go by face value. Do not go by anyone's words that this person said this, so I'm doing this. Please write in to all the state boards individually. This is something that I did when I was applying, when I was thinking of, getting a limited license by doing ACT for 2 years in orofacial pain. So I wrote in, I emailed all the state boards through the ADA website that, the ADA website has information of all of those things. So you just email them and you ask them, hey, I'm doing this, and it will be this many years of duration. It's a CODA approved program, or if it's not CODA, just say you're doing 2 years or something. Will I be eligible to apply for a limited license? So they will get back to you very quickly. I think I received responses from almost all the state boards within 3 to 5 days, the business days. Yeah. So definitely, and they will send you an individualized message. They will show you what their guidelines are, what the procedure is. But I would definitely say look into this, do your research, know exactly what you want to get into. Yeah.
That was really helpful. Thank you.
No, you're most welcome.
Thanks, Shreya. Thanks, Anisha, for being on video, for unmuting and speaking. All of you here, if there's anyone who can do that, I think that would be great for your just for you to get used to it also, and also to engage more with Dr. Shreya. Shreya, another question that came up is from a student. So someone who's doing their BDS right now. I don't know what you would have to say about this because like you're not in that space now, but still asking you, what should I do as a second year or like the question says second year, but let's say what do they do in their dental education period? BDS in their home country if they have this dream already, like they're already prepping for it.
Yeah.
What would be tips there?
So if you are in your second year, definitely, I would say start off by looking into research papers, like doing something that's research associated, thinking what your next steps can be with regard to that. Aside from that, I think it's a little too early to maybe prepare for the INBD. I think you would need maybe another year or so, and then you can definitely go ahead, fly to the States and give the INBD, States or Canada, and give the INBD. Aside from that, strengthen your application. Honestly, I think that dental schools in the US want you to be a very holistic person. They are not very concerned about just a few aspects of your application. They look at everything. They want to know that you're not just, just a person. I mean, they want to know that you're not just, a piece of paper. They want to know you as a person. So have a lot of experiences. Show them that you've dabbled into every aspect while you've been in school. Show them that you can manage academics as well as co-curricular pressure, and that you're able to manage both of them excellently. Aside from that, as I would say, yeah, research, maybe take some time off, and I mean, when you have time after school, go and shadow some more dentists around your area. It doesn't always have to be in the US. I think another most important part is how you portray your application. You should know how to write it. Like, you could have done A, but if you've not written it as efficiently, then it won't come across well. So that would be my advice, and I think that second year is probably the right time to have this objective or goal in mind, so you can start planning out everything. I think I was a little too late in my decision.
I just want to tie together two things that Shreya said. One thing is um, writing the application well. You could have done 1,000 things, but if you don't articulate it, they don't know that you've done this. And the second factor being about how to start doing things in the second year. So something to add on there would be if there's any student here or if anyone's watching it later, you should definitely start the habit of writing things down is what like I and like MS Meenakshi is my head coach here. What the both of us would definitely tell you guys is, when I say writing, it need not be a pen and paper thing. It need not be journaling in its real sense. Whatever works for you, write it down or like type it down on a Google document. When you go into a research project, for example, or when you go into a community service initiative by the school, trust me when I say this, in 3 years, you will forget things about this. Like, there's no way you're remembering anything. You'll remember like 5%. The emotion that lies in the 95% and the things that you learned, that one patient you saw and maybe made you feel good, or, they made you feel confident that you're a good dentist. All of these minor things will trickle down and will sort of fade away. So when you're sitting to write your supplemental application, your statement, these very specific emotions are what you need to articulate your story better. And any day, please begin writing down what you feel when you do any dental related or otherwise opportunity or experience. And then 4 years later, when you sit down and write, or even any of you all who are going for shadowing, like Anisha, you're going for shadowing now, right? In 1 year, when you apply, this will help to, remember that this is what I noticed between the US or Canada and India or your home country.
Mhm.
So please do that. It will really, and I'm not even joking when I say this will elevate your application so much, and it will give you that shining edge that Shreya was talking about earlier, and set your application apart. Shreya, another question that came up, which can directly be channeled towards you, is about NYU. And the question directly asks, how did you answer the NYU supplemental questions? It's a quite straightforward question. Why do you want to join our school, right? So how did you do? How did you bring the shine? I'm just going to say shining edge because I like it. So how did you bring that shining edge to your supplemental answer
So,
for NYU? Yeah.
yeah, this is a very interesting question. And something that I wrote to NYU was that, so this is a very long winded story, but I'll make it short. When I just finished school, I wanted to do like a BSc program first and then get into dental school. So I wanted to start like how traditional DDS students start in the US. So I had applied to NYU at that time. Like, I mean, I was going to apply to NYU at the time. I had given my SATs and my all my English tests and all of that. And I was going to apply to the school at the time, but then I think the tuition was just extremely concerning at the time. So I didn't go ahead with that thing, with that idea. Aside from that, they also have these international, dentist programs where they bring in dental students from different parts of the world, and they give them a 2-week externship experience. I wanted to go to that, but then COVID hit. So I missed out on that. So I brought about multiple instances like these where I've been acquainted to NYU. And I said that I've always missed it by a hair, that it's always been a chance occurrence as to how I've lost out on NYU. So this is something that makes me even more resilient towards achieving it. Aside from that, I also had a few of my seniors who got into the school, and they were always telling me so much about it, about the school. And I think they're excellently known for their other programs, like their fellowships, their clinical fellowships, and through Dr. Appa. I think we all have some sort of idea, some background about NYU when we think of these things. So I just tied up all of that together, and I had conveyed that these are my intentions, and this is why I want to really go to this one particular school. And it was a very, very genuine, of course, like a heartfelt letter to NYU, more like. Yeah.
Nice. Basically, whatever tied you, like in that Venn diagram where you and where you come together, you wrote about that,
Definitely. You
right?
should try and show how you are the perfect fit for that particular university. They should know that they're
Yes,
gaining a loyal student in return. Like,
yes,
they should see
absolutely.
that you're, resonating with their values. So this is something that I was very keen on doing. Yeah.
So, there's any of you thinking, but I do not have, almost their experience with NYU, which you might not have, like Shreya did. That's when you try and find out what is there in your CV or your profile,
Yeah.
which um, which falls in line with their initiatives, with what NYU believes in. Like, if pick a particular initiative, it could be research, community service, or an ideology or a philosophy of the school, and then show them how you are interested in that, or that is already existing in your profile. You might have done something in parallel or something that mirrors it in your home country. So that is also another way of showing it if you do not have any direct NYU experiences. So
Yeah,
that's something that you can keep in mind. And with every school, I think this is not just NYU.
for
This is
sure.
just how,
Yeah.
yeah, write your supplementals.
Make it as
And
personalized as you can. Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just said make it as personalized as you can. They should understand that this is not just a general application from you. It's something that's very personal and means a lot to you. And they should value the kind of words that you mean for them. So definitely make it personalized.
This is the part where it makes an NYU application and not a central. And the rest of your application will be for every school. This is where you really appeal to the,
Yeah.
to the essence of that particular school. Shreya, the question obviously extends into, you know what, which is interview, and there's no bench for NYU. So, how was the interview like at NYU when you gave it? Is definitely a question that's come up. So, what would you have to say about that?
Sure. So I would like to say that this was my second cycle. I had applied to NYU in my first cycle and I was waitlisted. And when I had applied in 2023, 2024, that was the year that they only had the Kira talent platform, which means that they had about four questions that were timed, and you had to give an instantaneous, spontaneous answer to their questions. That was during the first cycle, and they had just picked students based off of that. There were no in person interviews or anything after that. Now, when I applied in the second cycle, which is 2024 2025, we had two steps to this particular school. So the first one was again the asynchronous Kira talent interview, and then once they went through those through the online platform and saw the responses that you had recorded, they would shortlist and call students for an in-person candidate day. So to talk a little bit more about the Kira, it was completely I would say it was non-clinical. It was based on how you would tackle certain problems. It was more about how you would behave in different situations. I remember it being more about them trying to gauge your moral compass. They wanted to know how morally strong and how strong you are and what makes you different. And I would say it was definitely completely different from what I had experienced at other schools when I was interviewing. So it was very holistic, the first step. And this there were four questions, if I remember correctly, and you had about 1 minute to prepare, and then you had 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer. And I think some questions were longer, so they gave you maybe 2 minutes. But yeah, so that is the Kira test. And honest, and I would say you, how much can you prepare for something that's so spontaneous? Um, but yeah, it was a little tricky. Yeah, it was a little tricky, I would say, but nothing that can't be done. So don't worry about that. Just give succinct answers, be confident. That is something that they're looking at. The second step was the in-person candidate day. So this is when they shortlisted the applicants, and they did so over a period of maybe 2 or 3 months. And then they called us in batches of, I believe, 50-50 students who came down and visited the campus. So when we went down, I went down in June to visit NYU, and they showed us around the school. And then we were divided into groups, into multiple groups, say maybe 8 to 10 people in every group, and we were assigned one faculty from general dentistry or from the inclusivity equity um, part of the faculty. So it was a round table discussion, and it was something that was moderated by the person who was taking the interview. So the faculty would ask us one by one, okay, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And you would go around in a table full of with all the 10 applicants speaking one by one about themselves. And it was a very general interview. My faculty especially did not go into any clinical questions. She wanted to know about us as people. She wasn't keen on knowing, how many RCTs we have done, how many crowns we have done. She was more concerned on knowing, like, oh, how are you as an individual? How will you manage in such an active and busy city like New York? So that is basically how that went. Yeah, and I would say it was very lighthearted, and we were stressing for no reason at all. But yeah, it was a good experience.
Sounds nice. But in Kira, was it all behavioral questions talking about your life, or do you
Yeah.
remember it being anything else as well, like ethical or something like that?
So I would say Kira it was completely behavioral based, and
Mm,
they wanted to see how you tie a particular incident in your life, and how
yeah.
you bring across those values. For example, they said, talk about a moment where you were involved in a disagreement with someone. How did you guys reach a mutual consensus?
Mm, 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 mm.
So how I tackled that particular question was that I started off by saying that I remember a time when I was working at a dental laboratory with technicians belonging to different parts of the world. Like, it was very difficult to see eye to eye, but something that helped was open communication and mutual respect. So it's basically how you tie experiences in your life and you use them as a mode to communicate those particular things that they're looking for, even if they're
I
not asking
think
you blatantly. You have to
I
somehow
think
come up with some experience in your life and you have to bring it across.
I think Shreya's effectively done some interview coaching here as well, because that was to the point. That is a very important thing that I really hope all of you will take home. This is exactly how you should answer your interview questions. And please put yourselves in the shoes of the interviewers. Imagine you're interviewing for your own clinic. Like I interview for like a 10 like a pretty small 10 or 20-person team that we have got, and I can tell you that I would also, as an interviewer, want you to not bore me when I'm listening to you. Like MS did not bore me, and look, she's here. MS is Meenakshi. So what I'm trying to say is, so obviously when someone's going through hundreds of people in the US and Canada who are professors, and they're definitely looking for profoundness in your answer. And profoundness just means you being your real self and tying in those experiences to the actual values and skill sets. Love that, Shreya, and that's exactly what you all should do. And I know it sounds scary, but it's actually the easiest to train for. If you just sit
Yeah.
down and write your life a little bit on
Yes.
like Jamboard is what we call it, a storyboard. It can actually work in your favor. Anisha, yes, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry. I really have like so many questions.
No, that's
Okay.
okay.
So like Dr. Shreya said that there weren't like any clinical questions. Like what clinical questions would we be expecting? Like is it supposed to be like what clinical about our clinical experiences, or is it supposed to be like a situation question?
Okay, sure. So let me answer that with an example. So if you're familiar with Colorado has an interview that has two parts, the virtual interview. So one they have where they want to get to know your background. They ask you a few follow-up questions based off of your tell me about yourself. And the second part of that virtual interview is a radiographic interpretation. So and you know how you would treatment plan for a particular patient. So I believe that is a more clinical interview. But what NYU, and I would also say UW had asked us some questions, like, for example, if, by the way, UW is University of Washington, and I got to know that it's called UW after I went there for my bench. So University of Washington was also keen on knowing how prepared we are to enter clinics immediately, because they're a very strong, clinically strong program. And they had asked me off the bat, if we gave you a handpiece tomorrow, how confident would you be to operate on a particular patient? And it was those kind of questions, I think. But I think NYU was a little bit more focused on knowing you as a person. They want to know how you fit into the program. They know that you're dentists, they know you have a particular set of experiences and preconceived notions, but they want to know how you will fit in with the class. that is something that NYU has been more focused on, I would say. And I was discussing this with a few of my batchmates as well. We were also, comparing different interview processes, and I think NYU was a little bit more wholesome in that particular essence. Yeah.
And also, like, I had one more question. You mentioned about research experiences. So, like, is it necessary that you have had research experiences, you have the data, you have everything that, like, shows that you've actively participated into research? So, like, is it supposed to be like a published research? Is that necessary when you mention your research experiences in, your application?
So I would say it doesn't have to be published, and I'll tell you this because for my research experience, okay, I had one research paper that was published, but I was not the first author. So that brings down the impact. That's one example. The second one is I was working on a patent with a department in my home school. I mean, at Manipal. But we were still working on it. We were still doing clinical trials. It hadn't really, been processed for a patent. It hasn't received a patent yet. So you can always say that it is in the works, and that what your contribution is in that particular aspect. So it doesn't, like, it's not mandated for it to be a published research and all of that. It's kind of like, from my side, like, if I was working on my application like very extensively, I would make sure that I have all the ticks, like that I have, if that I'm meeting like the minimum, like the criteria. I would want to make myself a little bit more competitive by having as much as I can. So I would say it's not mandatory. It's definitely not mandatory, but it's always a good plus to have research related experience in your application. Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense. Thank
this is
you.
just an example from my profile. Yeah.
Hmm. Thanks.
No problem.
Anisha, even in the application portal, if you see CAPID application portal, you'll find that in the experiences section, there's a drop down that says research. And at the same time, there's an achievement section in which it says publication. So that also gives you a chance to put publications under that umbrella, and whatever research you're doing, which is not published, like Shreya said, in this experience section. So you can definitely put both. And like she said, everything counts, every bit counts. All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Aditya, you have raised your hands. You
Hello,
can
yes.
unmute. Yeah.
So to build up on that, I had another question for that. So I'm doing my master's in public health right now in UT Houston. So and for the research experience, so right now I'm working as a graduate research assistant. So that counts as my research assistant, like research experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the thing is that the position is at the School of Dentistry. So the research they are conducting right now is relevant to dentistry. They are working on periodontitis. So it is a nice research, but there's no way it's going to be published anytime soon. It's like the first trial. They're gonna go ahead for quite some time before they start publishing. But there is another project that they're simultaneously working on, and we have some data for it, and I'm doing analysis for them as well, which is like the primary section. They collect like five different things, and they're gonna focus on everything individually as well. So
Mm-hmm.
once they get all the information about this, then they're gonna publish about this, and later on. So as much as I can, like, how can I improve my resume? Experience wise, and also I started, like, I'm looking for shadowing right now. I plan to apply this cycle. So how can I improve? Because I went to another, interview or something, not interview, actually it's another webinar where the university professors came and talked about the requirements, and I heard UAB, they were extensively saying that we only care about clinical experience. A couple of students asked them specifically that, okay, we are working as a GRA, or we have this research publication or this. They said, oh yes, that is very good, but we like clinical experience and we want that. So how can we improve that? Basically, that would be like the major question for me.
Okay. That's a very interesting take. Thank you so much for this question. I would definitely say that the way you're second guessing right now, you shouldn't even second guess. You've done most of your work by doing a graduate research assistant. That's already very good. You should know how you should put, portray yourself in the application. Don't say that, oh, this is not published yet. Should I add it? Add it because you're still contributing to it. You're still doing something in that regard. Just say that it's at this particular step and talk about how you have contributed to that particular project. They should know that you've worked in a multi-dynamic team in a particular department in dentistry, and you've done so much in that particular aspect, which means that you're acquainted with the process, you know how it's done. It's just that the publication process is a little bit tricky and it's time consuming, and I'm sure anyone would know that. So I would say don't undermine your achievements where you are right now, because I think it's really good. Aside from that, different schools will want different things. Now, I didn't apply to University of Alabama, so I have limited to no experience in that particular university. But definitely, I think some universities have, a predilection, or like are how can I say it? They're moved, or like they're slanting more towards people with higher clinical experience. But that doesn't mean that other schools won't consider you a competitive enough applicant. Don't just look at one school and completely decide that whatever you've done is completely disregarded for. I would suggest, not doing that at all. Everything. So the first thing is that the application that you write reaches them. You don't reach them. Your clinical experiences, your hand skills don't reach them. The first thing that is reaching them is your application. You have to seal the deal in your application. That's only, and only then will they call you for the next step. So I would say put in every little thing that you have done, but put it in such a manner that shows that you've actually done it. Like, don't just state facts like, oh, like I was here, I did this. No, tell them how you played a very important role as a team player. Tell them that you have experience in statistics, or like, this one particular niche. They love people who have experience in different niches of dentistry and, public health. So I don't see where you're lacking. Now,
Okay.
I don't know about UAB. I can't, like, comment explicitly about that because I never really applied to that school. So I don't have, enough of an idea to comment. But that's my take on your question.
Do you believe like there's like a minimum amount or time of shadowing that one must achieve before application, or that is considered competitive in a sense?
Again, dental schools value quality over quantity. It's what you learn in that particular amount of time and how you convey it that matters more than how many hours you've put in.
Okay.
They know that it's very easy for applicants to fluff how many hours they've shadowed. There's no way to confirm it or to double confirm it. If, like, the best way is basically to, bring across the point that how what you learned while you were observing and shadowing. So that's what I think is important. It's always quality over quantity. And as for minimum, I'm not sure there's a cap. Is there a cap? I know that for the traditional DDS students, they have a cap at maybe like 300 hours or something. But I don't, or 500? Is it 500?
No, it's 150 actually.
Oh, okay. So it's
150 to 200.
right. So it's 150 to 200 hours. But for internationally trained dentists, they already know that you're dentists in your home country. And shadowing just enforces the fact that you are trying to understand how dentistry is done in their country. The basics of dentistry are same, but there are always slight nuances in dentistry when it comes to different countries. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, Meenakshi, do you want to add on something? You unmuted earlier.
Yeah, just to Shreya's already made it pretty clear. This is just an addition to Aditya's question. So all research need not be published. It might or might not be published, but what Shreya said, what needs to be highlighted is through that research experience you've gained, or your you'll have to showcase you can be a team player, you possess excellent analytical skills, and you have the data, I mean, ability to analyze and interpret data. That is the only takeaway. If it's published, it's a validation, it's like a proof, that's all. But if you can bring this out, and especially in a structured program as a graduate research assistant, I think that speaks for itself. So, and to add to just to reiterate what Shreya said, please do not bring it down in any way. Don't undermine it. Just highlight it in a way that I've done this and I have proven my team playing ability, analytical skills, and ability to do evidence based dentistry. That's it.
So this would qualify as like an evidence, like study in evidence-based dentistry, right?
Ideally, yes.
Okay.
Depends on the exact nature of
Yes.
the research that's conducted and your role in it. But
Um,
overall, it showcases your tendency and your flair for that aspect. That's it.
Understood. Okay. Just one more. There is there any way, like, I know because they said that sometimes new universities add more seats for CAPID. The like there's new universities coming in which does not have international program, but they might start this year or the following years. So it just they just randomly start it, or is there a way that we can check that this university is gonna start doing it next year or something like that?
That's actually very interesting because this is something that I also learned while I was in the CAPID cycle. For example, UOP, like they opened new sets of seats this year. They have two different campuses. One is the main San Francisco one, and there's another one in Sacramento. So they introduced it this year, like while, when like the CAPID cycle was in action. Aside from that, I know Harvard has opened its gates to the international dentist train program, but they don't accept applications through CAPID, is what I was last updated about back in September, because I have stopped reading everything since I got accepted. Sorry. But yes, they did open their applications. I think towards August, or like, yeah, in August. Yeah. So definitely one way that helped me get in touch with this was that I had joined a lot of Facebook groups. So there are two groups on Facebook that I was actively following, which was the 2024-2025 Capit cycle one, and there was another one which was also similarly named, like it had leaves in its profile, in it, like orange leaves in its profile picture. But those were the two groups, and they would, like, the admins of the group are somehow in touch with the admissions committee, and they constantly post on the Facebook group like there are new programs coming up, new seats are opening up for students. And yeah, so I would say stay tuned to that Facebook group because the admins are in contact with the admissions committee there. Aside from that, something that I would do, because I was very inquisitive about it, was I would write to all the schools, like what is the seat, like what is the class size this time for the cycle for that school, and all of that. So that is something that I would recommend. Like, obviously, the best source is the dental school itself. But then again, you get an idea from these kind of groups where the admins are constantly in touch with the university.
Thank you.
Definitely join the groups, Aditya. Like, um, take what you need and then leave what you don't need. But these kind of official informations will be helpful. And what Shreya said about Harvard, um, that's right, Shreya. They, they take every year depending on their traditional class size. So they have seats that open up, then they will open it up. So you'll have to keep a check on the site website because they're not on Capit. I can do something. We have a video with Dr. G. Shreya, who was our scholarship winner 2 years back, and she applied to Harvard and she got in. That's actually how we learned about the school. So her video can be helpful for you all to know about that particular school, so that you can go and watch on YouTube. Dr. Jasmine has asked Shreya on the chat, how early did you start preparing for the bench test?
Okay. Now, For the bench test, this is a very tricky question. So when I was working at a dental lab in Singapore, I had access to, all the hand pieces and stuff like that. I had an access to a mobile motor that I could take home in a big, like, it was in a big suitcase. It was completely equipped with everything. So I would take it home and I would occasionally practice. But I started practicing seriously, and I'll be very honest, 1 month before I got the before, like, when I was called, like, we have a 1 month gap between that and when you're supposed to turn up for the bench test. So I think because I was also working and I didn't really have a lot of time, I only started 1 month before, which I think makes or breaks the deal. Like, if you know everything, if you know your concepts, and if you're confident in your hand skills, then 1 month should be enough. But for someone who is not acquainted with the style of how cavities are to be cut and teeth are to be prepared, I would definitely say we need 3 to 4 months of practice. And guidance is always good. I for me, like, because I am the kind of person who needs to see, like, what exactly I have to do. Like, I need to, yeah, I was always using Stevenson as a reference. I would go through his videos and I would see what is expected of us. And then I would try and replicate the same. But really, you have to understand the fundamentals of how, that particular thing is being done. So I would say 3 to 4 months, if you have everything and all of that. But personally, for me, I prepared in a month, and I think that made all the difference, and I wish I had given myself some more time. Looking back, I think I definitely needed more than 1 month. 1 month is not enough, especially based on which school you're going to. Yeah.
Thank you, Shreya. Um, Dr. Anisha and then Hetwi as raised their hands. I think with that, we'll wrap up the questions. Anisha, you can go first. Yeah.
Yeah, so Dr. Shreya, you were talking about how, and Meenakshi as well, everybody was talking about how you have to present your experiences in a manner such that they add value to your personality as a person or as a
Yes.
professional. So I wanted to ask, like, how important are those experiences which are not related to dentistry in general? Like, I've always been like a person who loves to explore other areas as well. Like, I've been a creative director to a homegrown clothing brand. I've also been a research analyst to like a marketing agency. I'm also a peer sex educator with an organization, so it's been like 3 years with them. So like these experiences, like where do I place them? Like, what's the hierarchy? Like, where do they come?
Okay, that's very, very interesting. And I was also a marketing intern for an ad hub company. So I did have that experience as well. And trust me, I had added that in a non dental experience. It comes under non dental because you're not doing anything in dentistry, but it's still an experience. And where I would place that, because it brings out so much about your personality, I would say, add a small talk about it in your statement of purpose a little bit. Talk about how you dabble into different things, and that aside from just being a dentist and doing dentist things, you're also interested in other things as well. You're a multi-dimensional individual. And when you're interviewing for schools and they ask you, okay, tell us something that's so atypical or something that's different about you, you have an answer, because you have those experiences, and you can talk about what it's taught you. You can talk about what the market research that you're doing, and how it's brought in a lot more knowledge, and it's broadened your horizons and whatnot. Of course, you would have to go a little bit into detail and talk about the highlight of those things, but I'm sure it's very interesting, because not a lot of people have that. So definitely include it. And this would be your co-curricular part. It would be aside from your dental experience. But regardless, I think it's a very good thing to add. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Dr. Hetwi.
Uh, Hi. First of all, thank you so much, Dr. Shreya, for this webinar. And secondly, I wanted to ask how accurately do they check bench test preparations? Like, do they check them very precisely and accurately, or some kind of that is okay? Like, do you have any idea?
Hi, Hetvi, and thank you so much. But okay, so this is something that I've heard from the advanced standing students at the schools that I had gone for bench. And this is what they had told me. So basically, the faculty there. So okay, let me start off by saying that when you're doing a DDS program and you're doing preclinicals, they give you like a score sheet. In the score
Okay.
sheet, they have different sections like margin width, then proximal walls, taper, and they grade it based on that. Like if you have a taper between 0 to so and so degree, it's one particular grade. If you went beyond that particular taper, then they will give you another grade, and there's one that's like a fail. They, because it's
Okay.
out of the normal bounds, they will, so they follow a score, they follow a scorecard, and that is accessible in almost all traditional DDS schools. They all have a similar one. So if you Google and try to see like a PDF online, or I will try to share one with you. I think I have one from USC, so I will pass it to Flynn, and maybe Flynn can pass it to you guys.
Yes.
But I have one, and that is what I had used to prepare for the USC bench test. And
Okay.
so they follow that, and then they total all your scores, and then they will see, they will do a blind evaluation, and they will see whoever is in the top whatsoever, and then they will shortlist those people. And to answer your question with regards to how closely they see it, they use their loops to see the tooth, like to see your
Okay.
preps, to see the cavity. And
Right.
so that is why, like, I remember when I was preparing for my bench test, we would often hear that, practice with loops, or like, before submitting your tooth, just look at it through the loop once. So, if you've missed anything. So
Yes.
they see it through the loops.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And I have one more question. Like, as Dr. Anisha said about her experiences, I also have a teaching experience, but it is not in a dental setup. It is, I was in like chemistry tuition classes. I used to, support my tuition teacher. So, do you think that's a relevant experience to add on, or that's just like not something that impactful in a dental application, dental school application?
So, as I mentioned, there is nothing like, impactful, non impactful. It's about how you make it impactful. Like you just
Okay.
told me that you were a teacher for, the subject chemistry. So, what does that tell me about you as a person? That you're good at multitasking, you're good at managing people, you have strengths in a particular subject, and that you're able to communicate those things to an audience. That's what it
Yes.
tells me about you. So, you should be able to portray it in that particular manner. Like, don't write verbatim, I was a teacher in, like, for chemistry.
Yes.
Doesn't tell me much. But if you can tell me that you taught a class size of something, and that that you were able to assist them in that one particular topic, or how your teaching methods were, like what kind of a teacher are you more of a audio visual kind, or like rote learning
Yes.
or whatever. So it's definitely how you present
Okay.
present that fact. Don't just write verbatim, like, that's what I would say. But other than that, there is no experience that is small or that is big. It's your capacity. It's basically how you're able to convey. That's what I would say. I think this entire webinar has been me saying that it's about how you portray it. But
That's
that
true.
is, I
Thank
can't
you.
stress enough how important your written application is. And this is something that I learned by the second cycle.
Yeah.
I'm I'm going to steal a minute here and just reiterate what Shreya said in different terminologies. Whatever you do counts, but it's about how you narrate it. Give them an incident and an inference. Everybody does very interesting things in life these days. But what is your takeaway and how does that showcase you as a person? Is what the incident has to portray. You can do this A in your personal statement, B in your supplemental answers, C when you come to that stage in your interviews. This is something, it's a common thread that you have to follow throughout your application cycle and start documenting it like Flynn suggested, and not ever dismiss anything as trivial. You will probably have 10 things. So pick a few, because the personal statement, for instance, has a 5,200 character limit. So see what all should count. Your clinical experience should be highlighted, but how will you highlight it? Quote examples. I did this, and through that, you can see that I'm a very resourceful person. My hand skills are excellent. I think out of the box. Somebody who's a creative director can come up with creative solutions
Oh
for
yeah.
things. We've literally done this in personal statements, and often these statements have been pointed out or commended for these kind of incidents. This is what will leave a recall value. It's like that you have a celebrity endorsing your product. Okay, it's not the product, it's the celebrity that sells your product, simply because the recall factor. Bottom line, like Shreya said, a lot of us have this in the back of our minds. I've done this. Is this important? Whether it is important or not, it depends on whether you make it important. Okay. So, sorry. Yes,
That
I'm
sounded
That
opening it.
was
scary
that
and
was really very
threatening,
helpful.
but
That was
it's right. Yeah.
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 Like you just hit the sweet spot so perfectly. Like she knows exactly what she was saying. So yeah, definitely yes, exactly what Meenakshi said. Well, yeah, exactly. I couldn't have put it better. Yeah, and it's more
I
about
think
it's kind of like PR. Honestly, it's
yes,
Yes.
how you're marketing yourself.
Marketing.
I don't like to use
Yes.
that word,
absolutely.
but it's how
But
you're looking on paper. Yeah,
But I think that is your one final takeaway for sure. What MS said, you this is just do not let anything hold you back, because like I think Shreya said this through her through whatever she told you all. When you're on the other side, you will second guess everything. But now you know how Shreya asked, I think Aditya, like, do not second guess anything that you're doing at all. Introspect for sure, make course corrections, all that's fine. But whatever you do is valuable and it counts. And I think we'll end here with the questions because we're a little over time. But I really hope this helped, Shreya. Thank you so much. I think the amount of information you gave, both factual and anecdotal, and your insights on that are all very valuable. And I really hope that you guys learn from it and get inspired. And congratulations again, Shreya, for making it. I know that you're in New York now. We are so incredibly happy that you're beginning school and have all the fun there. And we're hoping to hear more about NYU now that you're going to be in the school, while you're there as a student. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Any closing words, Shreya, before we wrap up? Anything
sure.
that you want to leave them
Uh,
with? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for your questions. I can just tell you that I was in your position just 3 or 4 months ago. It is stressful, but if you have your eyes on the prize and if you're constantly working towards making your profile stand out, I think you will reach far faster than ever. And just don't lose faith in yourself. Be confident. Don't weigh your application with regards to someone else. They could have different experiences. They could have be judged on a completely different parameter than you. You are different. You're another individual. So please don't hold yourself in comparison to anyone else, and just give your best, and you will make it. You will make it. I know everyone says this. It's not about if you will make it, it's about when you will make it. And that's what CAPID is about. And this is what one of my friends told me, and it stays with me. It's not about if you will make it, it's about when you will make it. And that makes all the difference. So thank you so much, guys, and all my best wishes to all of you.